After reaching its peak 7 years ago, the Chinese automotive industry has started to go on a downward spiral, bringing disastrous consequences to homegrown EV brands like BYD. The Shenzhen-based company's sales have hit an all-time low during the last year, making the Chinese government second-guess itself about going down the EV route as the future of economical transportation. Although annual sales of EVs and plug-in hybrids in China have been projected to grow by 22% this year to reach a total volume of 11 million vehicles, closer inspection shows that this is way slower than what the market grew in the past few years. For example, 77 million plug-in hybrids and EVs were sold in China in 2023, a sales growth of 36%. 2022 saw the biggest growth in the market at 90%, with 5.7 million units being sold. Some might see the decision of the Chinese government to stop offering subsidies upon purchase at the end of 2022 as the main reason for the market collapse, but there are way bigger issues at play here. In addition to BYD, there were over 500 EV manufacturers registered in China during the market's boom period following the pandemic. This led to an oversupply of units, which saturated the market, with the manufacturers resorting to massive price cuts to secure market share and simply stay afloat without going bust. BYD was one of the biggest victims here, despite being the country's top-selling EV brand with 2.4 million cars being sold in 2023 alone. The company was forced to slash the prices across their lineup. This caused a domino effect where more than 10 other EV brands also lowered the prices of their best-selling models, including Tesla, who made the Model 3 sedan and Model Y crossover more affordable than ever before. In case you still have doubts, let us give you an example. The recently refreshed BYD Yuan Plus has an MSRP of 119,800 yuan or $16,642, which is an absurd 11.8% cheaper than what the old model cost. These absurd price cuts are not unique to the world's biggest EV manufacturer either, as competitor Xpeng launched a promotional discount that slashed the price of their best-selling G6 SUV by 20,000 yuan over a one-month period. But price cuts are a good thing, right? Well, it's not as simple as that. Imagine buying an EV at MSRP today only for the company to cut the price by thousands of dollars the very next day. This has happened multiple times over the past year, which has left buyers who purchased their EVs recently understandably outraged. 45% of all auto-related complaints in China in 2023 have been auto-related, and 6,884 out of them were over price changes. What's worse is that people have taken to the streets to air their frustrations, which is a rarity in China. Despite the Chinese market showing signs of being a safe haven for EVs early on, the nation's EV manufacturer was slow to optimize their production and make things cost-efficient. Companies are losing money left and right over every model they sell, which is hurting their bottom line. Remember the 500 EV startups we mentioned earlier? Guess what? Only 90 of them are still around today, and even a handful of them are operating at their full production capacity. When we say the Chinese EV industry is dead, we truly mean it. 1/3 of the remaining EV manufacturers are selling less than 500 cars a year and are on the brink of going bankrupt. The future does not look so bright for the remaining companies either, as a handful of brands continue to dominate the sales charts. No other company provides a better example of the Chinese EV industry's downfall than Evergrande. The company was backed by what was once the nation's second-largest property developer, but never managed to get its foot in the door. Despite having endless resources backing it, the company lost an average of $17 million on each of the handful of EV models they sold before taking down the whole corporation with it. This is far from the only EV startup bankruptcy story we heard out of China during the past few years. Shanghai-based WM Motors, once touted as the Chinese Tesla, folded in October of 2023, preceded by fellow automaker BYD, which folded in July of the same year. April marked the end of another once promising Chinese EV startup, Neutron, which ventured into the business of making electric cars after experiencing success in the manufacturing of scooters under their NIO brand. Although the company once mentioned that over 20,000 pre-orders had been placed for their first model, a $300,000 yuan electric SUV, the company was unable to produce one single customer example before going the way of the dodo. We could go on, as there are countless other examples, but you get the picture now, right? Even NIO, one of BYD's biggest competitors, is hanging on by a thread. Despite managing to avoid bankruptcy, the company's sales have fallen at an alarming rate, and they were $2.9 million in the red, according to the 2023 earnings report. According to the projections of the U.S. consulting firm Alex Partners, only 1/5 of China's current EV brands will be financially viable by 2030. So to say BYD is under pressure to secure its longevity would be an understatement. Looking at BYD's 2023 sales records paints a grim picture of the company's future. The company had just sold 54,908 EVs in the February of 2023, a slump of 39% year over year. The company's other big seller plug-in hybrids has also seen a 34% downturn in sales compared to the prior year. When comparing year-over-year sales for the first 2 months, there's a 10% downturn in sales, an alarming figure once you take a moment to think about it. The downturn in sales has also affected the company's share prices, which are down about 9%, further adding fuel to the fire. This marks BYD's worst sales since the middle of 2022 and highlights another major issue with the company: its over-reliance on domestic sales. 95% of BYD's EV sales are within their domestic market in China, which is a major red flag in anyone's books. Although they have made moves to expand to other markets like Australia and Europe, success overseas has been minimal. We believe BYD's limited success in other markets comes down to not one, but several factors, with the lack of brand awareness being one of them. Build your dreams might be the biggest EV manufacturer in the world, but how many of you knew this before we said it right now? The company simply lacks the brand recognition that some of its major rivals like Tesla, Volkswagen, or Mercedes have, leading to European buyers looking past them and sticking with brands that they are familiar with. BYD EVs are not exactly affordable beyond the Chinese market either, with most models being comparable or even more expensive than what rival brands offer. BYD also lacks an established dealership network in other markets, which has hampered the brand's growth and held it back from reaching the mainstream audience. Despite these shortcomings, the brand is trying its best to appeal to a wider audience. They're expanding their model range to suit the tastes of European buyers, with the newly launched Seal being an example. BYD's ambitions with the Seal are crystal clear. They are coming for the Tesla Model 3, which has dominated the electric compact sedan market for several years. Their efforts are yet to be rewarded, but the company is staying hopeful with plans to triple its market share. An all-new plant is proposed to be built in Hungary, where 150,000 units will be built each year, with the output potentially doubling to 300,000 units as time goes on. BYD's European CEO Michael explains that production will be in Europe for Europe, and that by producing BYDs on European soil, we will be closer to customers, offering faster deliveries, and people will trust us more. The Seal is not the only popular BYD model in the old continent, though. The title goes to the ridiculously named Atto 3. It sold 12,363 models last year, followed by the Dolphin with 1,079 units sold, the Tang with 1,055, Han with 849, and the newly introduced Seal and Seal U with 284 and 11 units respectively. Considering that the Tesla Model 3 outsold the entire BYD lineup in Europe combined, you start to question whether BYD's plans to dominate the European EV market will be successful after all. If their sales slowing down and the whole Chinese EV market collapsing before its very eyes wasn't enough, BYD has plenty of other controversies to worry about. Constant rumors about shady business practices continue to surround the company, and in 2022, the city of Changsha put a BYD plant under investigation for excessive emissions that were causing nosebleeds among children living nearby. The company received immediate backlash for this issue, and their shares fell by 4% following the controversy, and it's safe to say that they are still facing the consequences of this as well as thousands of other complaints just like this one. So what does this all mean for BYD and the future of the Chinese EV industry? It doesn't take a genius to figure out that the future looks undeniably bleak for both BYD and the nation's EV dream. Once a shining star, BYD's current struggle to stay afloat in a saturated domestic market that is killing itself from the inside with heated competition and plummeting sales is hard to look at. However, there are still glimmers of hope. BYD is actively trying to course correct. Their European expansion plans with the Hungary plant and the Seal sedan targeting the Tesla Model 3 show a commitment to capturing a wider market share and lift the company back to its former glory. Although this alone won't be enough to restore the Chinese EV market, we are certain that it will provide some hope for the people of China who have been sold an unachievable dream of an all-electric future. So is this the end of the Chinese EV market as we know it? Most probably. But this story is not unique to the nation with the world's biggest population either. The EV market is collapsing all over the world. If you want to learn more about the industry's downfall, why not like and subscribe to our channel?